I still remember the exact moment my entire world flipped. One tiny accidental tap on my screen, one careless second, one random selfie sent to the one person I never wanted to embarrass myself in front of, my crush. And the moment I saw his name on the chat, my heart sank so deep it felt impossible to pull it back up again. My hands froze, my mind went blank, and it genuinely felt like my private world had just collapsed into a pit of awkwardness. Because for weeks, maybe months, I had carefully built this image of being calm, composed, and normal around him, always thinking twice before texting, deleting messages before hitting send, rehearsing replies in my mind so I didn't sound weird, trying so hard to be perfect. Yet in one moment all that perfection cracked open with the most unplanned, unfiltered selfie I had ever taken. I remember pacing around my room, feeling my heartbeat in my throat, thinking maybe I should delete my account, maybe block him, maybe throw my phone out of the window or pretend I lost it, because who accidentally sends their crush a random close-up selfie where the lighting isn't right, the hair isn't fixed, the angle isn't flattering, and absolutely nothing looks intentional? But before I could even decide which form of emotional escape to choose, my phone buzzed, and that one notification shook the air around me more than any thunderstorm ever could. His message popped up. Nice selfie, grinning face with sweat. Was that meant for me or just a cute accident? And in that small sentence, hidden under nervous laughter emojis, I felt something soften inside me. Something warm, something unexpectedly kind. Instead of judging me, instead of making me feel stupid, he somehow made the whole moment feel lighter, almost funny. And in that tiny moment, a strange comfort wrapped around my panic, and it was like the universe whispered, "Relax. This isn't the disaster you think it is." What I didn't know was that this one little accident was about to change everything between us. The next day he randomly sent me a silly selfie of his own, making the same expression I accidentally sent him, and I burst out laughing in the middle of nowhere. Then I sent one back, he replied with an even funnier one, and suddenly, without planning it, without forcing it, this little accidental moment became our inside joke. Our secret ongoing conversation that no one else knew about. Day by day, our chats went from short replies to long late-night conversations where time stopped mattering. He started asking about my day, my favorite things, my worries, my dreams, and I found myself opening up in ways I didn't expect, sharing thoughts I kept hidden even from myself. His messages became the comfort I looked forward to after exhausting days, the smile that appeared whenever my phone buzzed, the warmth that sat quietly in my heart, changing everything I thought I understood about connection. We began talking about small things that slowly grew into deep things, like fears we never told people, stories from childhood, the moments that hurt us, the memories that shaped us. And while these conversations grew, something inside us grew too: trust, softness, feelings that neither of us dared to put into words yet, but they were there, silent but strong. And one night, after one of our longest heartfelt conversations, he sent me a selfie, not funny, not silly, but soft and genuine, with a message underneath saying, "I like talking to you more than I expected." And that single sentence stayed with me for hours, echoing in my heart long after I put my phone down. A few days later we finally decided to meet, and I remember that nervous walk toward him, the butterflies, the shaky breath, the way the world felt too quiet and too loud at the same time. But the moment he saw me, he smiled and said, "Should we take our first non-accidental selfie together?" And we both burst into laughter because somewhere deep inside, we knew our entire story had started with that mistake that was never really a mistake. That day we talked for hours, and when the sun started setting, he looked at me with a softness that felt like the answer to every unspoken question in my chest and said, "I like you. I think I've liked you for a long time, but I didn't know how to start talking to you. Your selfie just made it easier." And in that moment everything inside me fell into place like pieces of a puzzle I didn't even know I was solving. And now looking back, I realize that sometimes destiny doesn't arrive with perfect timing or perfect planning. Sometimes it arrives through the most awkward, embarrassing, unexpected accidents. And sometimes a moment that feels like the end is actually the beginning of something beautiful, something warm, something unforgettable. And that's why I will always say this: never be afraid of small embarrassing moments. Because you never know, one accidental selfie might just lead you to the person you were meant to find all along. But even after that beautiful beginning, real life didn't suddenly turn into a perfect movie. Because feelings, no matter how strong, come with fear, doubt, hesitation, and countless moments where you question everything. And as our connection grew deeper, I started noticing the little things that meant more than words. The way he always replied even when he was busy, the way he remembered small details I mentioned only once, The way he checked on me when I disappeared for a few hours, the way his voice softened whenever he talked about us, almost like he was trying to protect something fragile. And yet, even with all these signs, I still battled my inner fears, wondering if I was reading too much into it, wondering if this closeness was temporary, wondering if the universe was giving me something too beautiful only to take it back later. But every time I tried to pull away out of fear, he gently pulled me back with his kindness, reminding me that some people come into our lives not to leave but to stay. Our calls became longer, from random topics to confessions we didn't share with anyone else. There were nights when we talked until dawn, when laughter echoed into the quiet hours, when silence between us didn't feel uncomfortable but safe, like two hearts resting in the same moment. And slowly, our connection evolved from something sweet into something meaningful, something steady, something that felt like home. Then came the day when I had a terrible moment, a rough, draining, emotionally heavy day where everything felt wrong, and I didn't want to talk to anyone. But he noticed my silence instantly and called without even asking, and the moment I heard his voice say, "Talk to me. I'm here," something inside me broke in the softest way. I found myself crying without holding back, something I never did in front of anyone, but somehow with him it didn't feel embarrassing. It felt like finally letting go of a weight I carried for too long. And instead of awkwardness, he stayed silent, patient, gentle, letting me breathe, letting me exist without pretending to be strong. That night, after wiping tears, after all the vulnerability, after all the unfiltered emotions, he whispered, "You can trust me. I'm not going anywhere." And that one promise sank into my heart deeper than anything ever had. In the following weeks, our relationship slowly became something neither of us had named yet, but both of us were living, checking up on each other, supporting dreams, laughing at silly things, learning new things about each other every day. And I began to understand something life had been trying to teach me for years. The right person doesn't rush you, doesn't push you, doesn't confuse you. The right person feels like slow sunlight, warming you little by little until one day you realize you're no longer cold. And one night, while we were talking about future plans, he said something that made my heart stop for a second. "It's crazy how one selfie changed everything. Imagine if you hadn't sent it. We wouldn't be here talking like this, feeling like this." And I smiled because he was right. That one stupid accidental moment that I thought would ruin everything had quietly built the foundation of something stronger, something softer, something real. And in that moment I realized that maybe love doesn't enter your life with grand gestures or perfect timing. Maybe it arrives as a mistake, a glitch, an unexpected moment that makes you panic at first, and then slowly becomes the most meaningful part of your journey. And even now, whenever I think about how it all began, I can't help but laugh a little and feel grateful. Because if that silly selfie had never been sent, I would have never discovered the version of myself that felt seen, understood, valued, and genuinely cared for by someone who didn't plan to love me, but somehow, after everything, chose to. As days blended into nights and weeks quietly passed, our bond grew in ways neither of us fully understood but both of us deeply felt. There was a softness in everything we did now. Whether it was sharing a song at 2 a.m., sending random photos of the sky, laughing at inside jokes only we understood, or simply sitting on call in silence because sometimes presence spoke louder than words. And slowly, the fear inside me began to fade. The fear of losing him, the fear of being too much, the fear of not being enough. Because he kept proving again and again that he wasn't just passing through my life, he was building a corner inside it where he wanted to stay. But even with all this warmth, a part of me still wondered when the right moment would come to finally say out loud what had been living between us for so long. I didn't know that moment was coming sooner than I expected. One day, after a long, exhausting week for both of us, he asked if we could meet again. This time somewhere quiet, somewhere peaceful, somewhere different from our usual spots. And when I reached there, he was already waiting, sitting on the edge of a bench under soft golden lights, looking both nervous and determined at the same time. The evening breeze was cool, the sky slowly shifting colors, and everything around us felt strangely still, like the world had paused for something important. He smiled when he saw me, that familiar smile that always made my chest feel lighter, but there was something else in his eyes, something deeper, something fragile, something he was trying to gather the courage to say. We talked about normal things at first, pretending we weren't both aware of the tension in the air, but eventually the silence grew heavy enough that he had to break it. He took a breath, looked straight at me and said, "I need to tell you something before I lose the courage again." And those words alone made my heartbeat stumble. Then he went on, not rushed, not dramatic, just honest, telling me how confusing everything had been for him at the start, how he didn't expect our connection to become something he thought about every day, how he didn't realize how attached he'd become until my silence on bad days started affecting his mood too, how he started checking his phone more often than he'd ever admit, waiting for my name to appear, and when he said, "You've become someone I don't want to lose, someone I want in my life in ways I'm still figuring out." Something inside me quietly broke open, releasing every feeling I had swallowed for weeks. I didn't even need to speak. He saw everything in my eyes before I could say a single word. In that moment, he gently reached out, not to hold my hand, but simply to touch it lightly, like he was asking for permission to take a step forward into a place neither of us had defined yet. And I didn't pull away. I didn't want to. The air around us shifted, filled with unspoken confessions, trembling emotions, and a connection so real it felt almost fragile. And then with a soft smile, he said the words that melted every last wall in my heart. "I think I'm falling for you. And it scares me, but it feels right." And hearing that felt like a quiet sunrise inside my chest, slow, warm, life-giving. And only then did I finally tell him what I had been holding inside for so long, confessing how that one accidental selfie had become the most unexpected blessing of my life, how it brought me closer to him than I ever imagined, how it made me believe in timing, in moments, in small miracles that change everything when you least expect it. And as we sat there, hands slightly touching, hearts silently intertwining, the world around us faded. Not gone, just gently blurred. Because for the first time, everything felt complete. Everything felt clear. Everything felt like it was finally meant to be. After that night, something between us shifted. Not loudly, not with labels or dramatic announcements, but in the quiet, gentle way that real connections evolve. Our conversations felt different now, lighter yet deeper, like every word carried meaning, like every silence held comfort instead of uncertainty. He started sharing even the little parts of his day he usually ignored, like the taste of his morning coffee, the smile a stranger gave him, the random thought he had while driving, tiny details that people only share when you matter to them. And I found myself doing the same, sending him photos of sunsets, voice notes describing my day, small updates I would never think of sharing with anyone else. There was warmth in everything now, a softness that kept growing, and even though we still hadn't given our connection a name, it felt like we were walking towards something beautiful together. But life, as always, loves testing the things it gives us, and soon the first real challenge arrived. He became distant for a few days, still replying, still present, but something in his tone felt heavier, quieter, like he was carrying a burden he didn't want to share. At first, I tried not to overthink, but slowly the silence between his words grew louder, and my heart started trembling with worry. After 2 days of gentle pushing, he finally confessed that he had been dealing with personal stress, family issues, pressure he never talked about, responsibilities he tried to hide behind jokes and late-night conversations. And when he told me he didn't want to burden me with his problems, something inside me hurt, not because he was struggling, but because he thought he had to suffer alone. I told him softly, "You don't have to be perfect for me, just be honest." And for a moment he didn't say anything. But I could feel the emotion building in his silence, like he was fighting tears he didn't let people see. That night he opened up fully, things he had never shared with anyone, fears he hid even from himself, insecurities he never voiced, the loneliness he felt despite having people around. And as he talked, his voice cracked once, just once, but it was enough to break my heart in the gentlest way, because in that moment I realized how deeply he trusted me, how much space I had taken in his world, how much he had let me in without meaning to. When he was done speaking, he whispered, almost embarrassed, "I'm scared of losing you if I show you the messy parts." And hearing that made my chest tighten. I held his hand, looked into his eyes and told him, "I didn't come for the perfect parts. I came for you." And that sentence alone felt like a promise, soft, real, unbreakable. After that night, something stronger rooted itself between us, like the foundation of our connection had deepened, strengthened by vulnerability and honesty. Days passed and we found ourselves building a rhythm that felt like a relationship even without calling it one. Good morning texts, good night calls, midday check-ins, silly jokes, emotional confessions, moments of silence we didn't need to fill. And every time his name appeared on my screen, it felt like the universe tapping my shoulder and whispering, "See? This is what it feels like when something is meant for you." Slowly we started dreaming together in small ways, talking about places we wanted to visit, movies we wanted to watch together, food we wanted to try, even imagining little moments like late-night drives or cozy weekends. And those small dreams became threads that quietly stitched our hearts together. And even though we still hadn't said the official words, deep down we both knew, whatever this was, whatever we were becoming, it was no longer accidental, no longer a mistake, no longer something fragile. It was real, it was growing, and it was becoming something neither of us had expected when this whole story started with one silly selfie sent to the wrong chat on an ordinary day that ended up changing everything. As weeks turned into months, our connection grew so naturally that sometimes it scared me how effortless everything felt, like the universe had quietly written our names next to each other long before we realized it ourselves. We began meeting more often, sometimes for long walks, sometimes just to sit together in silence, sometimes to laugh about the stupidest things until our stomachs hurt, and every time we met, it felt like the world softened around us, like we were carving out a small, safe place of our own inside the chaos of everyday life. We were not just becoming closer, we were learning each other, understanding each other's moods, each other's unspoken signals, each other's silence, each other's hidden pain, and with every passing day, the line between friendship and something deeper grew thinner until it was almost invisible. But even then the fear lingered, fear of saying the wrong thing, fear of ruining what we had, fear of being too much or too little, fear of breaking the fragile magic that held us together. And one evening when we were walking home after grabbing coffee, he suddenly paused, looked up at the sky and said, "You ever get scared when something feels too good?" And in that moment I knew he was talking about us. His voice wasn't shaky, but there was a quiet vulnerability in it, like he was admitting something he'd been carrying for a while. I nodded because I understood exactly what he meant. Sometimes the things that feel the most beautiful also feel the most fragile, like one wrong move could break everything. We stood there for a moment under streetlights humming softly, wrapped in a silence that felt emotional instead of empty. Then he let out a small sigh and said, "You mean a lot to me, more than I planned, more than I expected." And that confession, soft and unpolished, hit deeper than any grand romantic gesture ever could. After that night, something in us settled, not completely, but enough to make us both breathe a little easier, like we finally accepted that whatever was happening between us was real and neither of us was imagining it. And slowly, our worlds started blending. His friends began noticing the change in his mood, and mine started teasing me about the smile I couldn't hide. He started sending me pictures of things that reminded him of me. Flowers, quotes, places, moments, and I found myself capturing sunsets, songs, and little pieces of my day that I wanted to share only with him. And even though we still hadn't officially defined anything, life was already treating us like a we. But the moment that truly shifted everything came on a rainy evening, when we got stuck under a small rooftop shelter, watching drops fall like silver threads around us. We were talking about random childhood memories when the rain suddenly grew heavier, drowning out the noise of the world and leaving only the soft rhythm of our voices. I don't know what changed in that moment. Maybe the rain, maybe the quiet, maybe the closeness. But suddenly he grew silent, staring ahead with eyes full of thoughts he hadn't said yet. After a long pause, he turned to me and said, "Can I tell you something without you getting scared?" And before I could answer, he added, "I think I'm already yours, even if we haven't said it out loud." And those words hit me like a slow, warm shock that spread through my entire chest. The rain kept falling, the world kept moving, but inside that moment everything stood still. I felt my breath catch, my heart tighten, and before I could stop myself, I whispered the truth I had been holding for so long, that I had been his long before he realized it, long before either of us dared to say it out loud. And he smiled in a way I had never seen before. Not wide, not playful, but soft, relieved, like he had finally found the answer he'd been searching for. And without needing labels, without needing to announce anything to the world, we both understood it. Whatever this was, whatever we were, it had quietly crossed the line into something deeper, something real, something that didn't need perfect words or perfect timing. It just needed us. And after that silent, rain-soaked confession, our story entered a phase that felt like a quiet sunrise, slow, steady, warm. Something that didn't rush but still changed everything around us. We didn't suddenly become dramatic or overly romantic. We didn't announce anything to anyone. We didn't even try to define what was happening. Instead, we simply existed together in a way that felt natural, like breathing, like coming home after a long day. There were mornings he'd send me pictures of his breakfast with the caption, "You should try this." Afternoons when he'd randomly text, "I miss talking to you." Evenings when he'd call without warning just to hear my voice, and nights when we'd stay awake longer than we planned, talking about dreams, fears, the future, and sometimes nothing at all, just listening to each other breathe in the dark. Slowly we created a rhythm, our rhythm, where his name became the calm in my chaos, and my presence became the silence he sought when the world grew too loud. But even in all this warmth, life still had its way of reminding us that love is not just built on easy moments. One day, out of nowhere, he grew distant. Again, not in the way that made me doubt him, but in the way that made me worry. His messages slowed, his voice lost a little of its usual excitement, and his laughter sounded like it was being forced through something heavy. I didn't push him, but I didn't let him disappear either. Gently, patiently, I kept showing up. How's your day? Did you eat? Want to talk? Little reminders that he wasn't alone, and when he finally opened up, it wasn't with words but with silence. A silence so full of exhaustion that it broke me. We met that evening, and the moment I saw him I understood everything. His shoulders looked heavier, his eyes tired, like he had been carrying a weight bigger than he could admit. We didn't talk immediately. We just sat together on a park bench as the sun dipped behind the trees, letting the world fall quiet around us. And after a long pause, he finally whispered, "I didn't want to bring this version of myself to you, the tired one, the overwhelmed one." And hearing that made my heart ache in the softest way. I told him, "The real you is never a burden," and he broke, not with tears but with a long exhale, the kind people release when they've been holding themselves together for too long. He leaned his shoulder against mine, not asking for comfort but somehow finding it anyway. And in that quiet closeness, something unspoken passed between us, something stronger than confessions, something deeper than labels. It was the understanding that love isn't proven in perfect days but in the moments when someone chooses to stay, even when the world feels heavy. After that night, he started letting me in completely, talking about things he hid behind jokes, sharing insecurities he masked with confidence, revealing dreams he never admitted out loud. And just like that, our connection shifted again, growing from tender into unbreakable, from sweet into steady, from accidental into intentional. The world around us kept moving. Seasons changed, routines changed. Life kept throwing its usual chaos, but no matter what happened, we kept choosing each other in small, quiet ways. A shared smile across a crowded room, a late-night call after a rough day, a comforting text when one of us felt low, or simply sitting together in silence because sometimes that's all the heart needs. And somewhere in all these moments, without any dramatic realization, we simply became something more, something real, something certain, something that felt less like a story being written and more like a destiny unfolding piece by piece. But destiny, no matter how gentle it feels in the beginning, always tests the things it wants to make stronger, and ours was no different. Everything between us was flowing with this quiet, beautiful ease until life decided to shake the ground beneath our feet, slowly at first, then all at once. It started with small misunderstandings, the kind we both ignored because they felt too tiny to matter. A missed call here, a delayed reply there. Moments where one of us felt unheard but stayed silent, just to keep the peace. And silence is dangerous, not because it's loud but because it grows roots, it settles in the spaces words should fill, it creates distance even when two hearts are sitting right beside each other. We didn't realize it then, but we were walking on thin ice, pretending it was solid ground. One evening, everything finally cracked. He arrived late to meet me, breathless and stressed, and instead of explaining, he snapped, not angrily but in frustration that wasn't meant for me. I felt my chest tighten, not because of what he said, but because for the first time he felt far, unreachable, like I was looking at someone I loved through a window I couldn't open. I tried to talk but he kept saying he was fine, and that word fine became the wall between us. I saw the truth in his eyes though. He was overwhelmed, scared of disappointing me, scared of not being enough, scared of losing control over the chaos in his life. But I was scared too, scared of losing the version of him who trusted me, the version who leaned on me in that park at sunset, the version who whispered things he never told anyone. So instead of arguing, I did the only thing I could. I stepped closer, looked him in the eyes and said softly, "You don't have to be strong with me all the time." And for a moment, just a heartbeat, I saw something break inside him. Not the connection, not the love, but the damn holding back. Everything he was too scared to show. He didn't cry, he didn't apologize. He just stared at me with that quiet desperation of someone who wants to collapse but doesn't know how. The next second, he turned away. Not because he didn't want me, but because he was afraid of letting me see the parts of him he couldn't control. He walked a few steps back, hands in his hair, breathing hard like he was searching for the right version of himself to present to me. And the distance between us, those few steps, felt bigger than the miles between galaxies. I didn't chase him, not because I didn't care, but because I knew some battles of the heart can't be fought by two people at once. Sometimes one needs space to fall apart so the other can help them stand again. After a long silence he whispered, "I don't want to lose you," and the tremble in his voice shattered the last bit of doubt in my chest. I walked toward him slowly, gently, as if I was approaching something fragile, and when I reached him I placed my hand on his arm, not pulling, not forcing, just letting him know I was there, real, steady, staying. He finally looked at me, and in that moment everything, every fear, every hesitation, every unspoken feeling, stood between us like a storm waiting to either destroy or transform us. And we both knew whatever happened next would change our story forever. And then in that quiet, trembling moment something shifted. Not suddenly, not with words, but with the kind of silence that carries more meaning than anything said. He finally let himself lean into me, his body sagging slightly as if the weight of everything he'd held inside for weeks, months, maybe years, had finally found someone to rest on. I held him gently, whispering nothing because no words could fix what had been building, but my presence alone seemed to reach him, grounding him in a way he hadn't realized he needed. For what felt like an eternity, we just stood there, rain-soaked, heartbeats sinking, breathing in tandem, letting the world around us disappear. And slowly he pulled back just enough to look at me, eyes glistening with unshed tears, and said, "I've never trusted anyone like this before. Not like I trust you." And I felt my chest swell, not with pride, not with relief, but with an overwhelming love so deep it almost hurt. I smiled softly, brushing my fingers against his hand, and whispered, "Then stay. Stay with me. Even when it's hard, even when you're afraid, even when you feel like you're breaking, stay." And in that moment, he nodded, letting the tears fall quietly, without shame, without fear, because he knew he was safe with me, because he knew that sometimes love isn't about perfection, it's about showing up, staying present, and choosing each other every single time. From that day forward, we both understood the truth that had been forming between us all along. Love isn't always dramatic, it isn't always easy, it isn't always beautiful in the way movies make it seem, but when two people allow themselves to be vulnerable, to show the messy, complicated, human parts of themselves, that's when love becomes unbreakable, that's when it becomes real, and that's when an accidental selfie sent in panic months ago transforms into a foundation strong enough to carry two hearts through anything life throws at them. And as we walked home that evening, hand in hand, the world glowing softly around us, I realized that every moment leading up to this, the fear, the awkwardness, the distance, the vulnerability, the laughter, the late-night conversations, the silent understanding, and yes, even the mistakes, had been shaping a story that was ours alone. A story that had begun with one accidental selfie, but had blossomed into something neither of us could have imagined. A love that was patient, that was real, and that was unshakable. After that evening, everything changed, quietly but completely. We didn't need grand gestures or dramatic confessions anymore, because every small moment, the soft good morning texts, the late-night laughter, the way his hand found mine without asking, the comfort of just sitting together in silence, built a rhythm that was ours, unspoken but understood. We learned to trust each other fully, to show every imperfect, messy piece of ourselves without fear. And in that trust, our bond deepened, growing stronger with every day, every shared secret, every vulnerability offered and accepted. Weeks turned into months and months into seasons, and through it all, the accidental selfie, the silly, panicked mistake that started this whole journey, remained a quiet symbol of how life's unplanned moments can lead to the most profound happiness. We celebrated small victories together, comforted each other through setbacks, laughed at inside jokes no one else would understand, and in all these little pieces we built something bigger than either of us could have imagined. And finally, one evening, as the sun set in golden streaks across the sky, he looked at me with that same soft, honest gaze I had fallen in love with, took my hand and whispered, "I love you." Not because of the perfect moments, not because everything is easy, but because every part of you, every mistake, every smile, every tear feels like home. And in that moment, I realized that this was the story I had always wanted, the story that started with one accidental selfie, one unexpected laugh, one hesitant conversation, and had grown into a love that was real, enduring, unshakable, and entirely ours. And as we stood there hand in hand, hearts quietly in sync, I knew that some accidents aren't mistakes at all. They are the universe's way of guiding you to exactly where you're meant to be, with the person you're meant to love, and that sometimes the smallest, most unexpected moments can change your life forever. And from that moment on, our lives became a series of little shared worlds, days filled with laughter so contagious it made ordinary moments extraordinary, nights spent talking about fears and dreams we had never admitted to anyone else, quiet mornings where simply holding hands felt like the most complete comfort, and afternoons where even a glance could say more than 1,000 words. We celebrated each other's victories, no matter how small, and supported each other's struggles, no matter how heavy, learning that love isn't about perfection or constant excitement, but about showing up, choosing each other, and embracing the messy human parts that make us who we are. Every accidental text, every awkward laugh, every hesitation, every silent moment had led us here, teaching us that real connections are built not in grand gestures or perfect timing, but in the unplanned, unpolished, and unexpected instances where hearts collide and understand each other without needing words. And as we continued walking side by side, feeling the warmth of each other's presence, I realized that the journey that began with a simple accidental selfie had become something timeless, something that would stay with us forever. A love story written not by fate alone, but by every choice we made to stay, to trust, to care, and to love fully and without reservation, knowing that sometimes the smallest accidents create the most beautiful beginnings, and that the heart always remembers the moments where it truly felt seen, valued, and cherished. And in that quiet understanding, with the world softly glowing around us, we simply smiled at each other, knowing that this story, our story, was just beginning, and that no matter what came next, we had found in each other something rare, something real, something unshakable, and something that would carry us through everything life had in store, forever reminding us that the tiniest, most accidental moments can lead to the deepest, most enduring love. And as days turned into months and months quietly folded into seasons, we found ourselves not just in love, but in a rhythm that felt eternal, where even the smallest gestures carried weight, where laughter and silence coexisted in harmony, where late-night conversations could stretch into dawn without a single word feeling forced, and where holding each other's hands became a language stronger than anything spoken. Every accidental selfie, every nervous message, every panicked text, every awkward moment that once felt like a mistake now felt like a thread in the tapestry of our story, weaving us together in ways neither of us could have predicted. We learned that love isn't always grand, it isn't always perfect, it isn't always easy, but it is always real when two hearts choose to trust, to stay, to embrace every flawed, messy human part of the other without hesitation, without pretense. There were still moments of fear, moments of doubt, moments when life tried to pull us apart with distance, stress, or misunderstanding, but each time we returned to each other stronger than before, proving silently that love isn't measured by perfection, but by resilience, by presence, by choosing each other every single time. And finally, on one golden evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the sky in warm hues, he looked at me with eyes that held every story we had shared, every laughter, every tear, every secret, every vulnerability, and whispered softly, yet with the certainty of forever, "I love you, not for the perfect moments, not for the easy ones, but for every part of you, every mistake, every smile, every tear, because you are my home." And in that moment the world seemed to fall away, leaving only the two of us, hearts intertwined, breathing the same air, feeling the same quiet certainty that what had begun as one accidental selfie, one tiny unplanned mistake, had grown into the most profound, enduring, unshakable love we could ever imagine. And as we stood there hand in hand, smiling at each other under the fading light, I realized that life's smallest accidents often lead to the most extraordinary beginnings, that love finds you in the most unexpected ways, and that sometimes the moments you think will destroy you end up creating something so beautiful, so real, and so timeless, that it carries you forever, reminding you that even the tiniest choices, even the unplanned, clumsy, awkward little mistakes can change your life completely, and in our case had led to a love story that would stay with us, quietly powerful, endlessly patient, and perfectly ours, for the rest of our lives.